When we hear the word climate change, we often think of things like sea level rise or parts per million of carbon in the atmosphere, these big numbers-oriented abstract phenomena. But when we actually think about how you or I experience something like climate change, we feel it in our stomachs or in our hearts. We think about the places and communities that may be under threat. We think about a lake we may have a very fond memory of, or a community that we are in close relationship to, and how these might be changing because of this thing called climate change. So when we think about, how we might change our behaviors or take policy actions or do other things to, stop climate change, the way we actually approach that is not through big abstract numbers, but through our personal relationships and our feelings towards these things. How will my life change? How will your life change? How might the future of my kids or my pets or the places that I hold so dear, how might those things change? So thinking about climate change in terms of feelings and emotions is a way to get to what really matters to us. So leaving those out of the equation of climate research is a pretty risky proposition. So if climate change is also about feelings and emotions, it's important that we use research methods that can also get at our feelings and emotions. Art, in both its very erudite forms like painting and music composing, and also in its more everyday forms like writing haikus or making zines. These are ways that we can express our emotions, explore our feelings, work together with other people to come to a common understanding about how we are both related to and different from others, and how we are affected by climate change. So here at the Field Lab, we do things like make zines, host spoken word performances, do art print exercises using pigments and natural dyes from our environment, all as a way of understanding our environment and climate change through those more feeling-based, emotional, and embodied ways of learning about the world. We like to think about micro-climate change mitigation infrastructures. So building small, ephemeral, intimate infrastructures that can help us deal with climate change. And for us here, those are social infrastructures. They're gatherings, they're workshops, they're having lunch together, they're gathering around the fire so that we can learn to be in better relationship to each other and to this place that has been stewarded since time immemorial by Silk people. These small micro infrastructures, we think, will help us build the muscles that we need to really address climate change and the profound ways that it impacts our communities. I think climate change is also a feminist issue. When we think about feminism, sometimes you might think, oh, that's about women's rights or women's empowerment or equality between the genders or sexes. But actually, for me, feminism is really about the redistribution of power, thinking about how we are always in relation to other bodies, and about care. So these are, power, relationship, and care are three key terms for feminism. And although feminist theories and practices have traditionally addressed relationships, care, and power between people, in ecofeminism or climate change feminisms, we're also thinking about those terms in relation to the environment. So how do we have power over the environment? How do we control or act violently towards the environment? How are we in relationship to the environment in really obvious ways, like the water that we pour from the tap actually comes from our lakes and rivers. The air that we breathe, going literally into our bodies, full of all of the particulate and pollution that we send up into the atmosphere. So we are intimately related to the environment in a really embodied way. And so thinking about relationships between bodies is a very feminist question. And then, feminism also talks about care. We think about the care economy. Who looks after our kids? Who looks after our elderly? Who is doing the care work in our communities? And when we think about the environment that's under threat from climate change, we also want to be thinking about how we are caring for that environment and who is doing the caring. So in that way, climate change is also a feminist issue, and we can learn a lot from feminist theory and practice and history of feminist movements about how we should be in better relationship to our environments.